Introduction of new business. 9.1, Gilroy homelessness efforts.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members, and members of the community. I'm Sharon, Goei, Community Development Director. Tonight's presentation on Gilroy's homelessness efforts will be a joint presentation between the Police Department and Community Development Department. Staff is providing an overview of the city's ongoing efforts to address homelessness through a multi-department approach that integrates public safety, community services, regional partnerships, and policy work. You'll receive an update on the Quality of Life Officer Program from Captain Dutton. We'll also highlight regional trends and outline the city's homeless response and prevention efforts. In 2020, the City Council at that time created an unhoused ad hoc committee. The committee made recommendations which were adopted by the City Council. One of the key initiatives was to create the Quality of Life Officer team. The point-in-time count is a federal requirement from HUD. At the end of September last year, staff shared the Santa Clara County 2025 point-in-time count report with the City Council. The point-in-time count has two components, sheltered and unsheltered. The shelter count includes people that are living in emergency shelters. The unsheltered count includes people that are sleeping outdoors or living in places that are not designed for human habitation, such as streets, tents, parks, and vehicles. For the overall Santa Clara County point-in-time count, you can see that it increased from 9,903 in 2023 to 10,711 in 2025. The number has been remaining around 10,000 since 2019. The number of unsheltered individuals has remained relatively flat. The increase, as you can see, is mainly due to sheltered individuals. And county has indicated that they have expanded their shelter capacity and have also increased utilization of shelter beds due to their efforts to streamline their shelter hotline that's called Here For You. Gilroy saw an increase in sheltered individuals and a decrease in unsheltered. And you can see the total point-in-time count for Gilroy decreased from 1,048 in 2023 to 959 in 2025. That's an 8% decrease. While the point-in-time count is a federal requirement, it represents just a snapshot in time. There are several regional partnership efforts that serve the unhoused directly in Gilroy. These programs are not funded by the city. In the areas of emergency housing, there are two shelters that are part of the county shelter system. One is the Gilroy shelter that's formerly called the Armory. It's a 24/7 year-round shelter that provides 120 beds. The other shelter is the Ochoa Winter Shelter. That's a seasonal family shelter that's open from mid-December to mid-March. This shelter can serve approximately 35 households, 35 families with about 105 beds each night. For both of these shelters, the counter refers people to these shelters through their hotline that's called Here For You, as I mentioned earlier. In addition to these two shelters, Community Solutions also provides a women's shelter that's for victims of domestic violence and their children. And the South County service provider, South County Community Services, they also operate a safe parking program, one in Morgan Hill and one in Gilroy. A significant part of our regional partnership is with local nonprofit service providers. We collaborate through a network of nonprofit service providers that directly serve the unhoused. Examples include the South County Community Services and Pit Stop Outreach. They perform outreach to the unhoused residents. They engage them, provide resources, and they also conduct assessments of individuals that enable these individuals to be entered into the county-wide coordinated entry system. And through this system, the unhoused residents are provided the priorities of different types of housing or different types of assistance based on their vulnerability and their needs. The service providers also provide basic needs items such as food, water, clothing, and basic hygiene services. There are also many nonprofit service providers that provide homeless prevention services. And this can be a wide range and a wide variety of services that assist individuals and families from becoming displaced and becoming unhoused. Examples include rental assistance, utility assistance, food resources, transportation resources, case management support, access to legal aid, access to healthcare resources, and connections to employment. Our community also receives services from other agencies. Santa Clara County provides services through their Office of Supportive Housing, Behavioral Health Department, and Social Services Agency. Santa Clara County Housing Authority also provides a voucher program and rental properties that provide affordable housing to low-income residents that keep them from becoming displaced and becoming unhoused. Next, we'll highlight some of the city's unhoused response and prevention efforts. As I mentioned earlier, you will hear a detailed update from Captain Dutton on the Quality of Life Officer Program. In 2023, the city created the Housing Community Service Division with 2 dedicated positions that collaborate with service providers to assist the unhoused and those at risk of homelessness. In early 2023, we also renamed and revamped the Unhoused Service Providers Network. We've been hosting monthly meetings among service providers to increase collaboration with the service providers and the city to connect the unhoused with services. In early 2023, we also created an Unhoused Resource and Efforts webpage, and our team has continued to add and update to this webpage where you'll find a variety of citywide efforts and regional partnership efforts that aim at assisting the unhoused. And it's a very simple web address, just www.cityofgilroy.org/unhoused. During cold weather, the city activates the senior center as the warming shelter. Affordable housing development, which is the production side of things, that's one of the 3 P's of housing: production, preservation, and protection. Staff works with applicants to deliver affordable housing projects, and we also provide affordable housing lists on our website and at tabling events. Through our housing element programs, we have completed some policy work that provide resources and support to allow emergency shelters and supportive housing. And in terms of funding, you'll see tonight, and Council saw this at the April 6th meeting, it's about CDBG funding. As you saw before, one of the priorities of CDBG identifying the consolidated plan, the 5-year consolidated plan, is to prevent and reduce homelessness. So the service providers will receive allocation to provide a variety of prevention and preservation services. And PLHA is another funding source. The city participates in the county PLHA consortium, and the county administers those funds on behalf of the consortium jurisdictions. Through PLHA funding, there's also a variety of nonprofit service providers that provide services directly to the unhoused and also homeless prevention services. Now I'm going to turn this over to Captain Dutton to talk about the Quality of Life Officer Program.
All right. Good evening, Council. I'm Captain Brian Dutton with Gilroy Police Department. I oversee field operations and the Quality of Life team through the Community Engagement team. Tonight's presentation is just providing an overview of the QOL program, its evolution, our current activity, and some of the capacity considerations that we have as a unit. So the program was launched in 2021 as a pilot program to address ongoing community concerns as it related to homelessness and other quality of life issues. Prior to that time, there was some policy issues external to the city that had an impact on crime, not only in the city but also throughout the state, like AB 109, Prop 47, Prop 57. Then on top of that, with COVID-era limitations on working through some of these issues, we realized that we needed a resource-based operation model to start. And so when we started this unit, that's really what we did. And we went out and we networked with the unhoused community to include our community-based organizations to find housing solutions. With changes in case law and shifts in expectations from citizens, we've evolved into now a model of balanced enforcement along with a problem-solving model. The long-term goal that we have for the unit is to become proactive, not only in addressing the community concerns, but then also in enforcement. And I think the takeaway is, as the legal operational environment evolved and community expectations, so did the role of the QL team, or the quality of life team. So in the last year, actually within the last 2 years, we've seen an increase in activity and service demand on our officers. From the time that the program was implemented till now, it's a 2-officer model. So we have 2 officers that are assigned to the unit. Initially, when we started in 2022, they did 400 calls for service each year. In 2024 and 2025, we're just above 1,100 calls for service. The big variance that we've seen over 2025 and 2024 is the amount of reports, amount of tows, and then in 2025, the implementation of see-click-fix. So that created a whole new reporting pipeline, which increased a lot of the visibility on the quality of life issues that we have in town, but that is also going to increase the workload on our officers. And so in 2025, we were able to not only have roughly the same number of calls for service, roughly the same amount of referrals, warnings. We decreased arrests, increased tows on vehicles, but then also addressed those see-click-fix tickets. That's in addition to a tripling of cleanup activity, largely driven by the Valley Water District and the city. So, to reiterate, see-click-fix created an increase in service demand, as many of our responses require now interdepartmental coordination of field response, documentation, and follow-up. And on a side note, I want to touch on the interdepartmental coordination. I have nothing but very kind words and a lot of respect for Public Works and community development. The police department and the other 2 divisions have all come together and started figuring out how to get through workflows when it comes to encampments, to find people resources, and to very quickly address those concerns. So I just want to pass my thank you on to those divisions. We're throwing out a lot of terms like abatements and cleanups. I just want to run through real quick what a typical, that might not be the right word, but what a routine encampment cleanup or abatement looks like. So we'll get a complaint regardless of where it comes from, whether it's a call for service to communications or comes through see-click-fix. We'll be notified of it, and we will send our QOL officers out to do an initial assessment. So we'll take a look and see, and really what they're going to look at is what are the conditions they're encountering, and then who owns the property? Who do we need to coordinate with? Just because someone owns a property doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the ones responsible for cleaning it up. Or there are several unique properties throughout the city, especially the waterways, where one portion of the waterway is owned by a private citizen, while the other portion of the waterway is owned by the water district, while another portion of the waterway is owned by the city, and then the railroad has a right-of-way in it as well. So we need to take those into consideration. And then ultimately, what outcome do we want to achieve? So once we do the initial assessment and we realize that there's the encampment there, that's when the team will reach out to our community-based partners like Carry the Vision, Pit Stop, and South County Community Services to coordinate outreach and get the resources required for the particular individual that we're working with. Our primary focus is public health and safety. But then we're also taking into account the environmental impacts and the repeated service engagements that we have with those particular people. And then as we work through that, they'll be posting, again, further outreach with our community-based organizations, and then we ultimately get to the cleanup. So really what our focus is that the multi-agency coordination, maintaining public safety, and then infrastructure and environmental impacts. Our goal is not enforcement alone, but combined with the outreach and service opportunities that we can deliver not only a lawful but a compassionate response when working with people who are unhoused. I was asked to just give a quick sample of what the workload looks like for our, our quality of life officers. So I have about 3 days of activity. I'm not going to run through all 3 days, so I don't go on too long. But I think what I'll do is I'll highlight April 21st. And on that day, the team went out about mid-morning to check on an abandoned RV that they had tagged 4 days prior. The vehicle hadn't moved, and there was no one associated with the vehicle, and was in a condition to where it could be towed. So that day was actually a very fast day for an RV tow. It was a 25-foot long RV. They called the RV company, or I'm sorry, the tow company within 3 minutes, and the tow company was there within 20 and had it towed within 30 minutes. That is fast. I was on a call for service myself one day where we encountered a 38-foot diesel pusher that required a wrecker, and it took probably 2 to 3 hours just to tow. Okay, but then they finish with that tow. They immediately get a notification, and when I say immediately, like they left where this RV was and immediately drove to a park where they'd gotten notification that there was an unhoused person in mental crisis. He was contacted. We contacted the county's behavioral health mobile crisis service. They responded within 30 minutes, which can be very quick for them. Completed the assessment, and then did the transportation with a non-medical ambulance transportation company. There's bottlenecks with all of that process. And so that process took about 2.5 hours, which is fine. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is it's not running from call to call like a patrol officer does, where you maybe have 5 to 10 minutes to deal with things. Sometimes we go out to tow a vehicle, it can take hours. Sometimes we work with someone in mental crisis and it can take hours. We'll give it the time that it needs. We just have 2 officers and we need to budget that time. So, having said that, the program's effectiveness and then the increased visibility from the calls for service is creating some operational demands on us. Again, we still have the same 2 officer staffing model that we had. While we've increased our coordination responsibility responding to encampment cleanups and the abatements, while we're trying to meet service level requests on completing those in a timely manner. In addition, there's more documentation. There's a long-term follow-up for people that we're trying to work to get into housing, and then also working with C-Click Fix. I also want to shout out to one of the officers on the team. Everything I've thrown at you for this year there was about a month or 2-month period where he was the only officer assigned, and we were still hitting the same targets we were with 2 officers. So what we believe is working with the program and where we think it adds value to the police department is its attempt to reduce repeat complaints, improve coordination not only with community groups but then also intra-departmental here in the city, but then also external. So we work well with Valley Water, Caltrans, Union Pacific Railroad, the Sheriff's Department, any other governmental organization that has responsibility in this area. We can provide a faster response, better tracking of our reoccurring issues, and then I think that ultimately leads to an increase in trust. And then I want to throw one other example that we had, and it was in the staff report, on one of our successes that was not enforcement related. We had a disabled unhoused veteran that was living in unsafe conditions, and it took a while, but we were able to confirm that he was eligible for benefits through the VA. And working with the VA and then behavioral health, and ultimately contacting a family member, we were able to get that person placed into long-term care and then get him out of an unhealthy living situation and not living on a street. And to the best of our follow-up, our understanding is that was permanent housing that was achieved on that. So in closing, the unit remains well positioned to address our complex quality of life issues and concerns through the long-term problem solving, the coordinated enforcement, and then our continued outreach with the community. And that concludes my report. If there's any questions, I'll be open to taking them.
Sure, I'll start with Councilmember Fugazzi.
Great work and a lot of great stuff that you guys do out there. The amount of tows in the last year was a lot because of, and you can answer this. It's not normal, right? It was built up over a long period of time. You don't expect that to continue that way. At least it doesn't look that way on the street.
Yes, I think. Yeah, I think that there is. I think that there is a lot of tows because of that convergence of the change in expectations of enforcement, going back to what I was discussing, like say with the COVID era.
So we were more permissive for quite some time. We had a buildup of broken down cars, RVs, various things. It took a year to kind of clear through them. We're seeing that in the numbers. Is that a correct assessment? And,
yes.
And that going forward, it's likely not to have that large of an impact as it did in the past year.
Yeah, I have not had a chance to look at this year's numbers, but we can always come back and take a look at that if you.
I'm just looking on the street; it looks great, right? I mean,
okay.
Comparatively, you know,
yeah.
Last year and the years before. So, that's very anecdotal. What is your? So obviously, cities like Morgan Hill, do they have a program like this, the QOL program?
Not to the extent that we're providing it.
Why do you think that is? I mean, just if you had to speculate.
I think that they have other programs in place that they're using to address their homelessness that are a little different than what we've done here.
So is every officer there is kind of trained to be able to know how to deal with it rather than have to call in a special task force?
Yeah, that could be the case. I just haven't had a chance to look at their workload to see what they're doing. I think when it comes to Gilroy and Morgan Hill, you're talking about really two different cities, you know, and different population makeups and different cultures. And so when you look at an enforcement model like that, I don't know if it's so much the enforcement model as to why things are different there, or is it more to do with just the cultural parts of the city and the demographics and the makeup of the city that are just different.
What's our closest, like, mirrored city that's doing the same kind of thing that we're doing? I mean, do we model off another city for the QL? I'm new to this. I didn't get the benefit of going through this whole thing.
Yeah, and so not being the original supervisor of the unit or even being part of it when it was created, off the top of my head, I cannot remember what cities were the model for it in 2021.
But from now, we're just kind of doing our own thing. We're not like modeling it after another city and evolving it as another city would have evolved it. We're kind of finding our way.
No, our teams are networking with other officers, but I think what it is that you, just like you would in any other industry, you talk to people and you figure out what they're doing and what works, but then you have to look at where you're at and how that would work within the particular environment that you're in.
Let me jump to Councilmember Ramirez. Okay, and we'll get back to you if you still have more questions. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you. Great report. And I commend the QOL team. I've done a ride-along with them. They do address this with compassion, and they do a great job balancing. So my hat's off to them. When you spoke about the coordinated efforts, I also had an opportunity to see that firsthand. I was given the privilege of being a witness to the abatement day one of the jungle up in San Jose and the coordinated efforts you spoke to. They had housing people out there. They had the police department out there. They had their Parks and Rec people out there. They had the vendor out there. And they, this was months leading up to the start of this and a great deal of coordinated effort prior to that. And it was pretty seamless when they were working together and coordinated together. San Jose has quality of life officers. I don't know whether we model after them or they model. I don't know about that, but it's. I don't think we're unique to having the quality of life officers. I just want to say, great job. I know that the numbers have gone up, the need has gone up, and addressing it in the way that you can. I don't know how you guys do it, but great job.
Yep. Any other questions?
I don't have questions for Captain, but I do have questions for the Department Sharon.
Okay, let's see if there's any other questions for the captain, and then I may have one myself for him. Go ahead.
In terms of other enforcement that those QOL officers do, if they encounter drugs or public intoxication, are they writing these individuals up? We had this, you were at the town hall that we had regarding the downtown, and I would assume we have some problem individuals in general. Is that part of what they do, or are they somewhat permissive?
No, that's part of what they do, but the example I gave about the activity on April 21st is the quick transition that they have to make and the potential time constraints that they have. So if they were out patrolling or driving around, or say they were going out to monitor an encampment and then they came upon something like someone intoxicated in public, they would deal with it, just like any other patrol officer would. Potentially, they might get dispatched to it if all the other beat units are tied up. But really, what they're doing is they're focusing on the long-term cleanups, the vehicle tows, that type of thing, and then also working in some of the proactive enforcement, I think is what you're alluding to.
Yeah, proactive. I mean,
Yeah.
Bringing a drug dog through a camp, for instance, to do, a drug raid on a camp, or trying to prevent, the excessive drug use in town by coordinating an effort to see who the supply chain is, or these kinds of things where the QL officers, I think, would be much more dialed in than anybody else to help in that respect.
Yeah. And when they get that information, they will also filter it to the anti-crime team that handles the narcotics investigations as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quick question for you when you talked about the coordination effort between yourself and Public Works and the cleanup.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, because an earlier agenda item where we just approved contracts so that we can call on contractors to do cleanups, but we didn't have those contractors before. So maybe you could comment, or the city administrator could comment. What was that process like? And how much money did we spend in the past years in cleanups?
Okay, so this is my general observation, and I don't want to hold John and his team to it, but they have a handful of people, and so we would go out and do everything that we needed to do for the postings and everything for the cleanup. But they have other responsibilities, maintaining the streets and water, sewers, and so because of that, some of those things took higher priority, and so then we would have to push off the encampment cleanups. Same with parks, if they were being used, or the streets team, or something along that lines. So I think if we're looking for efficiency and we're looking to move quickly on things, that it's going to be necessary to have something along that lines, just because otherwise we're going to be shifting the priorities, right? Like if we didn't have the QL officers, it would be difficult for us to do a lot of the long-term follow-up with just patrol officers because they're responding to calls for service and they have to shift those priorities.
So then I guess it's a question for the city administrator. In the past, we did contract out to do cleanups.
Yeah, in the past.
But it was a different type of contract system.
Yeah, so in the past, the contracts were set on a cleanup by cleanup basis. So we would get go out to contractors, get quotes for an individual cleanup, issue them a purchase order for that particular cleanup, get them all scheduled and coordinated, and implement the cleanup, and then at the next one we would do that process all over again. So it becomes a bit of a repetitive process in doing those contracts where we need them. Because it's an administrative burden to do that, there's times where the decision may be made to do it with in-house staff, and then we're dedicating in-house staff to do something where maybe the time is better spent doing something else. So those are the efficiencies we're trying to achieve in the last agenda item.
Another question, Greg, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
The last thing you mentioned, which is this long-term follow-up, can you or maybe the city administrator can explain how that is best to be in a police force with sworn police officers rather than that portion being in housing and community, services area in terms of like a handoff or what have you? It seems like that is the kind of work that a sworn police officer wouldn't necessarily be doing.
I could see where if we were given direction, and that's where city leadership would like to go, that would be a very reasonable model to research and take a look at.
Thank you. All right, so we have a question for Sharon. So Sharon, could you please come back? Thank you very much, Captain Dutton. Appreciate it. And we have a question, please, for Sharon.
And I don't know whether this, if you spoke about the armory, so I have some questions about the armory. I don't know if you're going to, if you would like to answer them. Should I wait till the county comes up? Should I just throw it out there and let you decide then? Okay, so the Here For You is the call where individuals call in and then they get the referrals, and they're asked if they're within the county. So basically anyone in the county that can call the Here For You and get a referral. And then one of the places they can be referred to is the armory. Is that correct?
Yes, and I believe interested persons, they usually specify where they would like to be placed, and if there's capacity there, county staff will refer them there, but if not, they will refer them to other locations. Yeah, and I definitely can have county staff come up to give more specific answers about their operations.
Okay, so is the Army considered permanent housing or temporary housing? It's 24/7 all year long, but is it, my understanding is it's temporary housing?
Correct, it's an emergency shelter. Yeah.
An emergency shelter. So I did a visit, and the 120 beds are all being used, and currently most of the people that have been there, that are there right now, have been there about 2 years. What I was told is on a good month they could house up to 2 people per month from those 120 people. I had sent questions to the county, and they responded back with the number of percentages that, percentage of people that live there that are from Gilroy, but I'm not quite sure how they determine that they are Gilroy people, or if can they self-identify and say, yes, I'm in Gilroy, and then that would be a Gilroy person?
I believe they do self-identify, and that's called Gilroy affiliated.
Okay.
And Gilroy affiliated, so you know from the report, Kelly says, spends most of their time in Gilroy.
Right. And then my question is, my understanding is in about 2 or 3 weeks, they're going to implement a new policy where the maximum stay will be 120 days. So, Councilmember Fugazi, you're the one good with math, so you can help me in case I'm wrong on this, but 120 days is about 4 months, and if on a good month we're placing up to 2 people into more permanent housing, that would mean about 8 people in 120 days would get housing. What would happen to the other 112 people? Would they then become unhoused residents on the Gilroy streets?
I'm going to ask KJ, the Director of Office of Supportive Housing with the county, to provide you more of the data.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, KJ Kaminsky, Director for the County's Office of Supportive Housing. We are implementing a length of stay policy. It's consistent with policies that we have in other shelters across the county. There is some flexibility in that if people are working on a housing plan, that can be extended. The intent of this is to get folks engaged and working on a housing plan with folks. And to the point of, yes, there are some folks that have been there a very long time, and that are there folks in this particular shelter that have high needs and fixed income or limited ability to make income. So the case managers are working with them on housing options, but we did have 270 folks exit last year. So that's higher than 2 a month. People are exiting. There are some folks that are there and struggling to find permanent housing, but the case management that we have that we are providing at the Armory is relatively new. For historical purposes, the Gilroy Armory used to just be overnight. And we, about 5 to 6 years ago, were able to add funding to make it 24/7. Just in the last 2 years, we've added case managers and housing navigators, so staff that are able to work with folks on the housing plan.
So you've been sitting here the entire evening, have you? Or did you just come?
No, I've been sitting.
Okay, so, and there's more to come with our unhoused, and we sit here on a regular basis. We get calls on a regular basis. The QL officers get calls on a regular. We have a proportionately high number of unhoused on the streets in Gilroy in the county, the highest percentage per capita. And we are struggling to compassionately but forcefully address this, balancing between the needs of the community and the needs of the unhoused. And so my concern is, I don't want all of a sudden there to be an additional large influx onto the streets. And so you're kind of guaranteeing us that that's not going to happen, or, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you see what the position that we're in, right? And so some reassurances, maybe I'll use the word reassurance instead of guarantee, that all of a sudden our QOL officers are not going to be inundated and everything with all of these that are now unhoused from the Armory.
Yeah, I can say that the service provider operator there, as well as that Home First operates the shelter, South County Community Services also provides case management there. They will work with folks to identify permanent or other temporary housing options as they exit. In our other shelters across the county, that varies. If people can reconnect with family, we help them do that. If they can they have family out of state, we can provide resources as long as we make sure that family member is willing to take them in. We can, if they want to transition to a different temporary housing site, we can work with them to do that. So there are multiple options, and we will provide the services to make sure those resources are available to the people staying at the shelter.
Councilmember Ramirez, if there's further questions for the county, I think we need to wait to the next agenda item with the county update. Okay, any further questions? Then I'm going to move to public comment.
Thank you. I have 3 speakers. Anne Marie McCulley, followed by Jan Bernstein-Chargent and Elizabeth Stone, please.
This might actually be helpful for Terrence. I spend some time at the Reentry Center, and I'm also Mothers Against Drug Addiction and Death. Recently, San Francisco Mayor Lori and the Mothers Against Drug Addiction and Death worked hard to open a mandatory detox for those committing drug violations. This is an alternative to jail and a path to treatment. I was at Reentry, and they do need a detox. There's one that they're started in San Jose, and I think that one of the reasons your police officers have a hard time answering what the path is because we don't have a path. And, but we could, and it's county-run reentry. It's got a good foundation. The people that work there are committed and also in sobriety. I do think that, you know, if it's easier to get drugs in Gilroy than treatment, you're not going to be able to achieve what the community wants. And that is not a homeless issue. So I know that they are intrinsic to each other, but they are separate issues. There are way more drug addicts and alcoholics living in houses than there are on the streets. So I just think it's important that it's a bigger problem than our homelessness in a lot of ways, and it's a different problem. And I'm hoping that we can start to pull those two apart, because we're not solving either one of them when we just say all the homeless people need to go to detox and get a job and they have mental problems, because it's not true. But we can't deny the citizens who are saying that there's some really bad things happening with people who are in active addiction and the way they're behaving. So I think that should be part of our plan in, you know, our I don't know, a separate plan, but part of something that we do as a city. And it's not in this plan. There's no mental health or substance abuse in this plan, I think, for a reason. So thanks.
Jan is next.
I want to call attention to the fact that you did see that the number of unsheltered homeless people has gone down by over 100 from one point in time count to the other. And on behalf of Pit Stop Outreach, I will confirm that. A few years ago, we were providing 150 meals per night on the street. Now we are down to less than 60. And that's a great trend, and I'd like to see it continue. Some good, and although I'd say Councilmember Ramirez asked a very good question about what happens when the policies change over at the Armory, and I think we're all interested in making sure that there is some real preparation for that event and not a sudden shock for the city of Gilroy. I also want to address something that Councilmember Fugazi said, asked some really good questions, one of them being, what's Morgan Hill doing differently? Morgan Hill has a full-time city-employed housing specialist, so that when, let's say, their police department finds somebody in need of that, they refer them to Brian Malikdem. He does screening, he does housing search assistance, and does a lot of homelessness services out of the city. He is a city employee. That's something that Morgan Hill has that Gilroy does not have. And I thought it was a really good question. You know, wouldn't some of this stuff be better handled maybe by somebody in the housing thing? Probably, because police officers are trained to do something completely different. We want to keep the numbers of unsheltered homeless moving in the right direction, and one of the ways we do that is by helping people into housing. And that housing process is long and it's complicated and it's confusing, can be confusing. And one of the ways we help, the service providers help people navigate it, is we've got to be able to find them, because it's not a one-time thing. We've got to be able to go out and talk to that person one time, two times. They've got to be able to check in with South County Community Services weekly for a year, right? They've got to be able to find them, and they've got to be able to know where to send an Uber if they're helping somebody get to a housing appointment in San Jose or to an office in Salinas, and gathering the documentation. I mean, once somebody is finally called for housing, called by the county, yes, you're up in the next batch here, and we need you to get these documents. They've got a limited amount of time. If they don't get all those documents in within that limited amount of time, guess what? They drop off. That opportunity is gone. They're back down into the queue. So once people are called for housing, it is imperative that the service providers be able to find them, and that they not lose any of the documents they've collected and their ID and everything. And that's where sweeps can just derail this process and send it right back to the beginning. You know, that's one of the reasons you'll hear why we have having a fixed location for people, a place where we know we can find them, a place where they have a generator and keep their phones charged so they can get the call from the housing office, right? Because if people don't answer their phones, they can't even be told there's an opportunity for them. So it is very important. You know, having people sleep
Thank you,
behind
Jan.
dumpsters is different.
Sorry, the bell didn't go. The time was up. The bell didn't go, so sorry about that. Thank you very much. I believe
I
Elizabeth
have
is next.
Elizabeth and then Robert Aguirre.
I'm freezing. I don't know about you guys. So I moved to Gilroy at the beginning of 2024 as an adjunct professor at Gavilan, my first graduate degrees in teaching ESL. I was really excited, had a lot of trees, it's beautiful, I really loved Gilroy. And then on May 9th of last year, I got a diagnosis for endometrial cancer, which kind of just blew my mind. I'd been getting really, really tired, so things were challenging, and I just rented a house that was a lot larger, so it had a lot more financial responsibilities. So I knew I didn't even know if I was going to live, so I needed to get out of that housing. And because I also have worked as a case manager and done a lot of that work, I'm really good at finding resources, really good. And so, but first, a shout out for that webpage that community development did. That is the best thing that's really been helpful. And that's how I connected with one of the service providers. But every single other provider throughout the county, even the cancer places, said, oh, we're really sorry to hear that, we can't help you. I had my total hysterectomy at Stanford on July 23rd and moved into a hotel on a week-by-week basis because as a 68-year-old woman, I didn't want to be in a congregate shelter. I didn't know, if I would be bleeding, how I'd use the bathroom, how I was going to take care of myself. It was really, really difficult. And, some of this will go on to 9.2. I called every single place, registered, quote, unquote, with every single place. A referral literally means, here's a phone number, call them. Places lost my information. I know they were counting me as on their rolls, and they would return a call 5 minutes before they close. If you still need our help, let us know. Even though I would leave detailed phone messages and send emails. Right? I'm kind of used to working independently, so that's part of being in the hotel for me was I had the whole office set up, so I could make fax anymore. I could scan things, email my documents, and they would get lost. So the system is really, really, really not working. Yeah. Two other points real quickly. Where am I time-wise? 26 seconds. I would not have been counted in the pit because I was not homeless on that one day in January. A lot of women are not counted because they know it's not safe, and so they hide places where they can't be found, right? And there's two things that have really come up that people need: a place to sign documents and a way to help people save their documents. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I'm sorry. We're unhoused people. Please just remember people, not just unhoused. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert's next, and then Wes.
Okay, so I want to address some of these things here. The Here For You, basically, I can tell you personally, I know that a number of people that I've been with call Here For You, and if they need something, they're in dire need at that point, they don't get a place right away. It'll take several days before somebody gets back to them. And a lot of the people that need this kind of help, either one, don't have a cell phone, don't have a way to charge it, or the phone's broken, it doesn't work. Different things that cause people not to be able to get that call back. And the way it's set up right now, they don't have a place where they can go and just say, I need a place, and then they can tell them in a couple of days or whatever, we will have some place for you. They just say, well, you just got to keep calling back. It doesn't work. And the other thing is that the capacity for shelters are not sufficient. We don't have enough people. And as you pointed out, Councilmember Ramirez, Spotlight did a story on how Gilroy has the highest number of unhoused people per capita in the entire area, the entire region, which is more than San Francisco and more than Oakland, even more than Sacramento. So basically, we have an issue here where we have more people with fewer resources available to them. And I also want to point out that the THUs are temporary, and that's why they're called THUs, temporary housing units. So all these types of THUs, including motels, are places where people go, and it's like a holding place. But eventually, if their issues are not resolved, they will return to the streets because they have nowhere else to go. And we can try to help people, but even if you house somebody, doesn't mean that they're going to be able to maintain it. Because if you have somebody who has been living outdoors for a very, very long time, it becomes very difficult to make that transition to get back into what we would call normal living. So that also creates a problem. And questions for the officer here. How you reported? Oh, he's not even here anymore. Okay. Well, the question, he'll get it later. He reported on a lot of different scenarios that turned out very positive, and I think that's great. It's fantastic. But how many service calls came out with negative outcomes? How many seniors and handicapped people that can't be placed into shelters did he run across, and how did he deal with that situation? Because the Armory will not accept seniors or handicapped people that can't care for themselves. And the places where people can go are full all the time. So we need to be able to have a way to deal with that, and right now we don't. And I also want to know how many...
That's your time, Robert. So sorry. Your 3 minutes is up.
How many calls resulted in a call to the coroner?
Thank you. Wes is next.
Hi, Wes White again, Salinas Monterey County Homeless Union co-president. Quality of life really panged when I heard that, because whose life, whose quality of life are we talking about? It's a very us versus them type of mentality, and they're your citizens. Whether or not they can, how can they actually even vote for you, obviously, right? No constituency needed, so, you know, too poor to afford rent, obviously they can't really register to vote just by a mail-in address. But can they run for office? No, of course not, because where do you lay your head? That's what determines the district. If they can only do by mailing address, then that's going to be insufficient. So what kind of challenger do you even have for opposition against these decisions? Back to the shelter in place, you know, that was because, oh my God, you might kill me. Stay away from me. I don't need to destroy and remove you and steal all your property and cause all this trauma for you because you might kill me. Stay away from me. That's one of the selling points in Salinas that actually helped make it work. We had 12 different encampments around the city, and they all had captains to them. And that's what created the Salinas SORT team, the outreach response team. You know, of course, that's all with the ARPA money that's gone. So that actually created a lot of community, and you'd be preserving community as well. Do you see these people as any one of community members? Because it feels like when you say abatement, or as it's doled out administratively, that you're talking about rats, rodents. You're talking about people being rodents. That's not trying, because of the money aspect. Again, they're leaseless. They're not homeless, they have a home. This affordable housing is what they can afford. And you want to take it away from them, keep them on the run daily. The money goes in the name of the homeless, but never directly to. So much money, just this last one, $2.25 million. You know, you can make an apartment complex for that and then solve your problem that way. But then that's jealousy. Oh my God, why would I give those people freebies when I can give my corporate friends that money instead? Are we doing public service or business? That's what I'm concerned about. People, I've lost over 200 people in Salinas just in the last 10, 15 years. And it's heartbreaking, because it is the jurisdictions that are forcing this. Even Robert Rivas, during shelter in place, only cleared debris along the highway here in Gilroy and did not take people's property, their housing. We'll give you our dead relatives' clothes, we'll give you our stale food that we can't sell anymore, but if you ain't paying the rent, we're taking it all back. And that's not a fair way to do life. It may be the way to win in business, but you're killing people on purpose, administratively, and you need to stop doing that. Stop sweeps.
I have no further speakers.
All right, thank you very much. I don't know that we have any other questions for staff at this point, and this is not, we're not taking action on this. So basically, we're receiving this report, so thank you very much.
Can I just make
Captain
one comment?
Dutton. Pardon me?
Can I make just one comment?
Yeah.
The part where we talked about HCS and the administrative work, just back to the city administrator, if you could follow up on that and think of how we can work as we grow for the need, not growing it necessarily in sworn police officers. At least take a look at that side of it. Thank you.
I just want to point out to Sharon, in your report, I was really glad to see wage gap identified as contributing to homelessness, because I think that is something that we kind of just forget about because it's just so burdensome to even think about. But thanks for pointing that out.